All right. So now we're going to see the last part of this that I'm going to show, which if you don't see racism can be stopped from this, and that it's ridiculous that it even happens, then you're just so ignorant and you'll never learn.
Okay, ready? What did you people who are wearing blue collars now find out today?
Yes. I know what they felt like yesterday.
I did too. How did they feel yesterday?
Down.
Like a dog on a leash.
Yeah.
It feels like
Like
a
you're
chain
chaining them up
wherever you go.
into prison. Like you're chaining them up into prison. Like you're shut up and you're throwing the key away.
See, anyone, regardless of what culture you're from, can be made to feel like an outsider. And that's exactly what they did to the Africans from the first day they brought them here. Instead of treating them as equals and making this truly a great America, they discriminated against them, kept them separate, kept them feeling as an outsider. Now imagine if you were made to feel like that for generation after generation after generation. What effect would that have on you and your other family members? You probably would all kill yourself. You'd be so highly depressed that you wouldn't see a need to even go on existing. Y'all need to really give African Americans credit for being strong enough to resist the evil advances of the demonic forces of supremacists. You really do. It takes a super strong person to be able to mentally and emotionally withstand the onslaught, bombardment of discrimination and prejudice that has been put against the African American. Some of the most strong-willed people in the world. So we can overcome this. We can do better. We just have to apply ourselves. Let's check it out some more.
Should the color of some other person's eyes have anything to do with how you treat them?
No.
All right, then should the color of their skin?
No.
Should you judge people by the color of their skin?
No.
You're going to say that today and this week and probably all the time you're in this room. You'll say, "No, Mrs. Elliott."
No.
Every time I ask that question.
No.
Then,
No, Mrs. Elliott.
when you see a black man or an Indian or someone walking down the street, are you going to say, "Look at that silly looking thing"?
No.
Does it make any difference whether their skin is black or white
No.
or yellow
No.
or red?
No.
Is that how you decide whether people are good or bad? Is that what makes people good or bad?
No.
Let's take these collars off.
Hey, don't stick yourself on it. You'd have to sort
Here, Mr. Elliott,
you can
what would you like to do with them?
throw them away.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Here, Mrs. Elliott. Don't eat them like
Now you know a little bit more than you knew at the beginning of this week.
A lot.
Do you know a little bit more than you wanted to?
Yes.
This isn't an easy way to learn this, is it?
No, Miss.
Okay, now let's all sit down here together. Blue eyes and brown eyes. Does it make any difference what color you are?
No.
Down, girl.
Now, it didn't even take a full week to get these kids to understand why discrimination prejudice is stupid, wicked, and evil. But I really wonder how many of them retained this lesson. If you watch this video, they brought these kids back years later and let them rewatch this. And I wonder how many of them actually did change from the initial perspective that they had of being prejudiced to what they're saying now, that you shouldn't be prejudiced ever. At least not because of things that people have no control over. Now, if someone's purposely going out being a bad person, then that's different. You're not being judgmental, you're judging the situation. Judgmental is when you're giving judgment to someone for something they didn't even do. He determined to rip that thing apart.
That feel better?
Yeah, they all friends now again.
That you have make any difference in the kind of person you are? Does that feel like being home again, girls?
This was the third time Jane Elliott had taught her lesson in discrimination. The first, 2 years earlier, was in April of 1968.
On the day after Martin Luther King was killed, one of my students came into the room and said, "They shot a king last night, Mrs. Elliott. Why'd they shoot that king?" I knew the night before that it was time to deal with this in a concrete way, not just talk about it, because we had talked about racism since the first day of school. But the shooting of Martin Luther King, who had been one of our heroes of the month in February, could not just be talked about and explained away. There was no way to explain this to little third graders in Riceville, Iowa. As I listened to the white male commentators on TV the night before, I was hearing things like, "Who's going to hold your people together?" as they interviewed black leaders. What are they going to do? Who's going to control your people? As though these people were subhuman and someone was going to have to step in there and control them. They said things like, "When we lost our leader, his widow helped to hold us together. Who's going to hold them together?" And the attitude was so arrogant and so condescending and so ungodly that I thought, if white male adults react this way, what are my third graders going to do? How are they going to react to this thing?
Yeah.
I was ironing the teepee. We studied an Indian unit. We made a teepee every year. The first year, the students would make the teepee out of pieces of sheet, and we'd sew it together. And the next year, we'd decorate it with Indian symbols. I was ironing the previous year's teepee, getting it ready to be decorated the next day. And I thought of what we had done with the Indians. We haven't made much progress in these 200, 300 years. And I thought, this is the time now to teach them really what the Sioux Indian prayer that says, "O Great Spirit, keep me from ever judging a man until I have walked in his moccasins," really means. And for the next day, I knew that my children were going to walk in someone else's moccasins for a day. Like it or lump it, they were going to have to walk in someone else's moccasins.
Wow.
I decided at that point that it was time to try the eye color thing, which I had thought about many, many times, but had never used. So the next day, I introduced an eye color exercise in my classroom and split the class according to eye color, and immediately created a microcosm of society in a third grade classroom.
Riceville.
Immediately. See how easy it is. It's that easy to sit up and stir tumult in a society. But when it was all over and everyone was given their normal status back, it easily changed again. We can stop racism and prejudice, people, if we want to. All you have to do is treat people the way you want to be treated. We've always heard that, but it's so hard to do. So definitely hard to do. Why? It's the wickedness within you. If you can't sit up and view someone who hasn't done anything to you at all as a normal person and view them as deserving the same respect and treatment as you want to get, you're wicked and evil of the devil. No other way to describe it. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Let's stop the madness, people. Stop the madness. It's no reason that there should be any discrimination, prejudice in this world. None. Except for the fact that the elites use it to keep us under control. That's it. That's the nitty-gritty. So let's make it better. Do the right thing. And love your brother and sister as you would have them to love you. Because at any point, just like in that class, you could be made to feel the way you're making someone else feel. And like I always said, bullies never learn until they learn. You make them feel how they make you feel, then maybe they'll realize and stop. But until then, they so ignorant, they don't even see it. Be blessed, folks. Peace.